town centre reopening post update. Hold on, I've got to find where that is on here, or somebody can tell me who's going to take that.
Chair.
Councillor Maxfield, I think.
Yeah, Chair, I think Councillor Maxfield's doing an introduction.
Yeah, okay then, well.
How are you?
Have we got Councillor Maxfield?
I am here. What would you like me to do?
Yeah, the introduction on work undertaken to ensure the town centre visit feels safe with the reopening post lockdown.
That item 5, just so that
Yeah.
I'm up to speed of
Yeah.
where we are on the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. It is as it's written. It's the way that's been done by all the officers up behind the scene to ensure that the town centre is both COVID secure, safe, and visitors and businesses and anybody else for that matter can come into the town centre and actually feel safe. So it's as it is, as it says on there. I'm not going to read it line for line, but we've got the government guidance, which is where it's all come from. I've got the teams that are going out to ensure that various bins and sanitising stations and labels on floors and the likes are all there. We've got the homeless and the rough sleeping temporary accommodation that's still ongoing, obviously, and our team's still actively engaging with our homeless and rough sleepers to try and get them into accommodation. We do have a few that are difficult to engage, but we're not giving up on those. The various accommodation that is available, we've got the bed and breakfast, and you'll have seen recently like the Crown and Longton, which has been all over the paper with some trouble that they've had with some residents that have had to get some of the rough sleepers that have had to go into there. It's complex needs which are being dealt with. Ultimately, the message is that it is safe to come into. The rough sleeper team especially are now actually looking towards the next part of their phase, which is now to look at the severe weather impact. Obviously, if it gets to 0 or below, then they need to get everybody in off the streets and keep them in until the temperature actually goes up. Domestic violence, during lockdown there wasn't actually a significant increase. If you actually spoke to the police and also our officers, and it's actually one of those things that we've actually been watching because we have expected the numbers to increase throughout this period of time, and even now we are still continuing to adults, children and families. There are some very complex cases which are going on, but we're doing everything that we can to actually ensure that they are safe. There's still the hub, there's still MARAC, which is continuing. Newcastle Housing Advice Service is also still in action, and the whole team behind all of this, they've worked solidly throughout. So I take my hat off to them to ensure that all of this is continued. We've still got the GLOW provider of Newcastle Children and Young Person Service. The refuge staffing and occupancy is stable there. We're basically without going into numbers, I mean, like I say, it is all in the report. We're seeing things in line with the rest of county, and we are still looking at keeping a close eye on it. The police have actually recategorised some areas of domestic violence, so that also has an impact. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions if anyone's got anything. The report is there. I'm sure you can read. Sorry. Anybody?
Ian?
No?
Oh, right.
Ian?
trying to find the wrong thing. Right, sorry, Councillor Cooper, yeah?
Right. I have noticed that, I'm sorry about this, I can't put my hand up because I've lost the picture as well now. So what I'm doing is going from sound. It was mentioned in the earlier meeting that 1 or 2 shops aren't producing signs. I've had the same problem in Wolstanton. I have mentioned it, it's Right Pies. It has been through to the environmental health. So shops, some of them
Roger,
aren't advised.
Okay, Julie. Roger, is that's your is that your bag to be putting some signs out? I know we've had a few issues with parks, haven't we? We were talking about getting some more signs out. Can you help Julie in that way?
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about launching the town centres and the retail centres again, we did put some social distancing signs up on Wolstanton High Street. Councillor Cooper, are you talking about the individual premises themselves not putting signs up rather than the general ones on the street?
It was Right Pies.
Yeah, so you're talking about the individual businesses rather than the general street signs, yeah. So
yeah, because I'd had it brought to my attention, and I did get environmental health to go to see it, and they did. And they did advise them to put up signs, but I haven't seen any or anything when I've looked round. So I don't know if rights are actually doing that. I haven't got a clue. Nothing seems to be materialising.
Yeah, if I could come in there, I mean, I think it's very much a matter for individual retailers as to what their own signage strategy is and what signs they put up. I mean, clearly there is a national campaign to encourage people to wear masks when they're in shops. So I guess a lot of people will be aware of that, and different shops will take a different approach to the signage. It's not something that we're really in a position to mandate. It's a position that we can encourage.
The reason I mentioned it, Marty, people were going in without wearing masks, and they weren't telling them.
If it's any help,
so that's why I've got enforcement involved.
We've got signs up in hotels telling people to wear masks, but we're not there to enforce it. There's a lot of verbal abuse that you get by telling somebody you got to wear a mask. We make sure the signage is, and if they don't want to do it, there's not a great deal we can do about it.
Yeah, I know, but when you try to teach a 13-year-old, and we're all about children coming from the college earlier, when you've got those students that are going to go in, if you're not telling them they've got to wear a mask, then they're not going to wear a mask. Then they are going to congregate. So you've got the attitude, you can go into Right Pies, you don't have to wear a mask. Oh, fine, okay, that's me. You get all the students going into a Right Pie shop that don't wear a mask. Then you get them all congregating, going, oh, great, we can all go to Right Pies. And this is where everything goes. We've got to be able to do something somewhere. But what?
Right. Councillor Owen, you wanted first, and then Councillor Moffat, you comes in after.
Thank you, Chair. I referred to the title here on page 11. Work undertaken to ensure town centre visitors feel safe for the reopening post-lockdown. If you'd have asked me that about 10 days ago, I'd have said, yeah, I feel perfectly safe. I'm happy with the measures taken by the council with signage, etc. If you asked me that question again earlier today, my answer would be I definitely feel unsafe visiting the town centre of Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle College has reopened. And as I stated at the pre-meeting talk, we've got hundreds, if not thousands, of young students descending on the town, particularly around the lunchtime area. And that is a major concern. I've experienced the sort of fear factor personally with that, and I see the fear factor on other people's phases, and something seriously needs to be done to address that issue. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Moffat.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on a couple of things, but first of all, can I just say Alison Gardner is in the attendees, and if somebody could let her in, she's been having trouble trying to get through. So just to let you know, she's in the lobby or whatever that other space is.
Yeah, we're just trying to get her moved across now.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of things to pick up on that Councillor Cooper and Councillor Owen have just mentioned. I'm aware, and I don't know whether other councillors are, that the way the college are working their timetables is that if students are not actually in a timetable session, they're being told to get off the campus. Now, obviously, that's a real issue for those young people, because where are they supposed to go? And I'm sure that, you know, part of the experience that Councillor Owen is talking about of having quite a lot of students in the town centre is because they're not actually being allowed to stay in the college when they're not timetabled into lessons. So I only know that from a couple of young people who have just started at college who have told me that. So I don't know whether or not we need to be having a conversation with our, you know, some people in the college about actually what's happening there. Because on the one hand, you know, members of the public and indeed comments that have been said here is about there being kind of quite a lot of students milling around the town centre. I'm concerned particularly with the new law that has been passed, that we need to not be demonising these young people. For a lot of them, it's their first few weeks in college. Some students are not Newcastle people, they're coming in from other parts, you know, some from Cheshire, some from Stoke. So it's a very fine balance about how we manage that. So I'd be really interested to, you know, look at what some of those positive solutions are rather than just putting it on the shoulders of those young people. So really that was the main thing that I wanted to kind of pick up on. Haven't got any solutions off the top of my head, but I do believe we need.
Councillor Owen, you're waving again.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that no way would I demonise anyone, okay, but it's obviously a major concern, whether the youngsters or whether they're like myself, OAPs, that there's a sudden influx into the town centre. I do appreciate the college are open, and at the previous meeting before this one started with the county council officials, I asked the same question, and they will be contacting the college hopefully and addressing the issue, and hopefully we'll see some improvement on that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Moffat, take it you want to come back?
Yeah, just to reassure Councillor Owen that there was absolutely no suggestion that he was demonising anybody, just that the consequence of a lot of young people suddenly being in the town centre is that actually people can feel quite anxious about that. And I'd just quite like, you know, to try and put a stop to any heightened anxiety as soon as possible.
If it's any help to you, the biggest culprits around here happen to be over 65. But they love just walking around and, you know.
I don't want to demonise those either, Chair.
No, it's going to be across everybody. You're going to get everyone, no matter what their age, society, are going to do it. It was on Dr. Hillary this morning saying people need to take it more seriously. But, you know, how much more seriously can we keep getting it to them? Any other questions on any of the other topics? Homelessness that's been mentioned.
What is the homeless? Ian?
Okay.
Ian?
Yeah.
What is the homelessness?
Yes.
How many have we got there now?
Hold on, it's in the report. Well, I don't think it actually gives figures though. Rough sleepers.
Yeah. I ask this at every meeting we have.
I don't think we've got actually figures, have we? Or have we?
As of the last conversation that I had, which would be last week, I've got a meeting with the officers tomorrow actually. Anyway, but we got 18 within accommodation, and we had 4 that we could find on the rough sleep account.
So
It's all right, Joe. I ask this.
Go on, Joe.
I ask this question every time we have a meeting, and because they're never in the comment, they're never in the minutes or in the report. So that's why I asked the question.
Would you like future reports to have some kind of actual numbers in, Julie?
Yeah, it would be interesting to actually know where we're going, because, you know, when we started off originally, we'd only got about 2 or 3. Now, as we've gone into lockdown, it's got worse, but we only had about 2 or 3 to start with originally. So, you know, I'd like to be a bit more up to date than having to ask you when we come straight to a meeting.
Okay, so I will feed that. I'll feedback that to you. But if you want me to be absolutely precise for you, we've currently got 1 family in one of the 2 temporary accommodation units, which are awaiting private rented accommodation. We've got 1 family in bed and breakfast, which will be moved into another temporary accommodation unit. We've got 7 people in Copeland. We've got 9 which are in the lower level supported accommodation. And in terms of rough sleepers, like I say, as of I think it was last week, we'd got actual 4 on the count, and they were the 4 which were known, which were actually quite difficult for us to be able to actively continue to, you know, we're engaging with it. We're giving them all the help and the advice, but they're refusing to take it.
Yeah, we can only give them advice. We can't, you know, if they don't want to do it, then they don't have to.
Yeah,
I do understand that. It's just that, you know, it's just nice to know where we actually stand and if we've got enough accommodation for everybody to go around.
Well, the accommodation side of it has obviously always been looked at, and we've got the accommodation that we have available to us at the moment. You know, if we have people presenting to us, which we did the other week, then, you know, although our actual initial accommodation that was available was actually short in availability, Newcastle Housing Association were able to step up and offer that. So, you know, we were able to house them, if that helps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, but, you know, it's just that you know, that was a question I've never asked before, you know, and it just wondered if we'd got enough housing for the people like that at the hour of need like this.
Well, like I say, you know, we have our accommodation that we've got, and if it comes to it, then we have to try and find it, even if it means that in some cases, like on when we had the 3 which actually presented to us, they were able, although all our temporary accommodation and bed and breakfast and everything else options that we have at hand couldn't help us at this particular point in time, Newcastle Housing managed to sort alternative accommodation, albeit on things like, you know, family and friends. So although it was only a short-term thing to be able to do it, they were able to help in that instance. And then obviously the longer-term approach is making sure that, you know, they will still continue to engage with us once they well, it's up to them, isn't it, to, you know, we keep offering and keep going, and then it's for them. I mean, ultimately what we're doing now as far as the rough sleepers side of it is, like, as I said at the beginning, I wasn't sure if you were in the meeting then, Julie, so I apologise if I repeat it or if you didn't hear it, but what we're at now is that we're currently going over the severe weather emergency protocol with Stoke-on-Trent City Council, which comes into effect, what we're on now, 14th September, comes in on the 1st of November, and that will actually go through to the end of March 2021, and whereby if that temperature actually hits 0 on any given night, then all rough sleepers and homeless must be accommodated for that night until such a time as the temperature is above 0. So, you know, we've got that. We've got the rough sleeper contract, which is jointly commissioned with Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and that's been awarded, as it says in the report. We've got brighter futures, and that's going to go on through till 2023 with the option of extending it for another further 2 years. So ultimately, we're doing everything that we possibly can, Julie, at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your update. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Owen, was your hand up as well? No. Okay, Councillor Gardner.
No.
You're muted. You're muted.
Do you know, I'm all day on these things and I do it every time. I apologise for being late. I just could not find the link. I'm just jumping out of another meeting. Are we still reviewing the previous minutes?
We have accepted them. Was there something there that you missed?
No, I'm just trying to catch up. I just wanted to know whether I have an update on domestic abuse that was in the minutes, but if I've missed it, I'm not going to drag people
Right,
back.
the domestic abuse has just been done by Councillor Maxfield, and it's.
I won't make a repeat of self. I can.
It's virtually as it's written.
Okay. That's fine.
Are you happy with that, or would you like some info off Councillor Maxfield?
No, I was just wondering whether, you know, since the last meeting, whether we're continuing to monitor it and getting updates. That's all.
The answer to that
yes,
is definitely yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor.
It's still constantly being monitored. No, sorry, Chair. Yes, it is still being monitored as we come further and further out of lockdown. The numbers are still being monitored. You know, we are continuing to assist the more complex cases, and MARAC and hub meetings and Newcastle Housing advice and everything is all still ongoing. So yes, it is still very much on the radar, Councillor Gardner.
Okay, and just a final follow-on question on that. Sorry to make your leap back. Now that the children back at school, has there been any increase in referrals of children?
Not as yet.
Okay.
Again, that is still something which is on the radar, and that is also in line with what is going across the rest of the county at the moment. Obviously, as schools go back for longer, then we can expect those numbers to go up, or certainly have more referrals coming our way. But I will keep you informed accordingly.
Okay. Right. I won't go back on the homeless one. I was put another hat on, but forget that one. I'll come to that another day. Right. Parks. Verbal. Is it Mr. Tate?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can take this one. As you say, it's a verbal update rather than a written report. You'll remember, I think at the meeting back in March, the committee had quite a good and wide-ranging discussion about the benefits of parks and green spaces, particularly for physical and mental health and well-being. But I think during that discussion, it was clear that the committee hadn't really sort of focused in on exactly what it was they wanted to scrutinise and why. So I think it was agreed at the last meeting that a little working group was going to be set up, and I believe we got as far as nominating the members of the committee that wanted to be on that group. But then unfortunately we went into lockdown, so if I think I'm right in saying the group never actually got a chance to meet and have that discussion. I think what we can say is throughout the lockdown period, we've seen just how beneficial parks and green spaces were for people, you know, while they were in that pandemic, the height of the pandemic and the height of the lockdown. And we managed to keep the parks and open spaces open and available for people to use and enjoy, particularly when we had the good weather at the start of lockdown as well. I think, you know, as we discussed at the last committee meeting, the sort of benefits of parks and green spaces are widely known and widely written about. So I suppose my first question to the committee is, you know, is this still a topic that you want to have a closer look at? And if it is, do you want to carry on with a proposal, you know, to put the working group together to try and scope, you know, the exact detail of this, or would a report from me on, you know, how we kept parks and open spaces open through the lockdown period, you know, for the benefit and enjoyment of people, would that be sufficient, or is there something else that you'd like to take a look at?
Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm glad we're talking about parks. I appreciate the fact that parks are really useful for health and well-being of our residents. Can we at some point talk about equipment that I would expect to be in my local park? And secondly, a bit of a hot potato, CCTV. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute we talk about it now, but it needs to be debated in the near future, please.
The question Mr. Tate was asking, do we still want to keep the subcommittee going? Councillor
To me, Ian. Ian?
Yeah. Just hold on, Councillor Moffat first, and then you can come in. Councillor Moffat.
Ian?
Chair, do you want to just answer the person on the phone? Okay.
You want to answer somebody on the phone?
No, it's all right, because somebody kept shouting Ian.
Oh, it's Councillor Cooper. She can
it's me, Julie.
So, Julie, do you want
to me.
Do you want to just speak do you want to speak now, because it's difficult for you on the phone? And Chair, if I can,
yeah, please,
after Councillor Cooper.
Right. I did have, we weren't asked if we could get in touch with Andrew Bird to have a group meeting before this meeting on parks and spaces, but nothing actually transpired. We were supposed to have arranged a date, the four of us, to get together over a meeting like this, but it never transpired. So whether the rest of the group want to carry on, I don't know. But we were given the options to do it.
Councillor Moffat.
Okay, so first of all, Roger, thank you for that. I remember now that we got very excited about having a small working group to really look at what we were scrutinising and actually be able to maximise the potential of the well-being impact of open spaces and the use of parks. I do remember us talking also about the I Love Parks project, which was brilliant. Obviously, lockdown has had an impact. But I know in my area, people have just been so happy when the parks reopened, and it's been a real kind of celebration. I to answer your question about, are people still interested in that working group? I absolutely am really passionate about having a working group to come together across the borough to look at how we can maximise the potential of our open spaces. I mean, because where I am in the Audley ward, it's not only about the kind of the parks, but it is also places like Bates Wood. Actually, the things that we've had an issue with, I suppose, because of suddenly people discovering they've got legs and outdoors and they can walk, and it's been brilliant. One of the consequences, having those being encouraged to go out and walk and exercise, one of the consequences for us is that huge numbers of people have been coming to the open cast area and into Bateswood, which has been great on the one hand, but it's been problematic on the other, because the amount of bins and things that we have just simply couldn't accommodate the amount of kind of rubbish people were generating, not necessarily in an antisocial way. So it'd be great to look at a campaign of encouraging people to take their picnics home with them. But aside from that, I think we're so lucky as a borough to have so many great park spaces. I'd love to be part of a group that looks at how we maximise that for the benefit of our residents and communities.
Well, on the last meeting, we were on about possibly reintroducing the books, which gave the 5 walks, and well, it was 5 walks of Audley, 5 walks of Betley, and various other ones. Any chance of them being reintroduced, or are they lost in the archives?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I've got a feeling that not all of them were produced by the Borough Council. I think there was some produced by other organisations as well. But I think what we need to try and do before we start talking about all these different projects and ideas and so on is maybe, if the interest's still there from the committee, to have the working group. Maybe the best thing is for the working group to meet and agree the scope of the scrutiny, because it's such a huge and broad subject. We could talk forever about all the different bits and pieces that are involved. And I think, effective scrutiny has to focus in on exactly what it is you want to scrutinise and why. And I think that was the idea of trying to get the group together to agree the scope, and then
wait until I get onto trees. The original group was Councillor Moffat, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Garner. Were you part of the original group? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're still on
Sorry,
mute.
I've got barking dogs. I've just had 2 new dogs arrive.
Let them bark.
Yeah, no. I didn't realise I was. I must have accidentally put my hand up at the wrong time, but I am interested.
Do we know who the original 4 were then?
No, it must have been me.
It was Councillor Gardner, Councillor Moffat, myself, and Sylvia Burgess.
Right.
Chair, it was also Councillor Holland. I'm just looking at the minutes from March. So there were 5 members: Burgess, Miss Cooper, Gardner, Holland, and Moffat. So if all those members are still interested, then we can try and arrange a meeting with them. I can email members outside the meeting if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it'd be best get in touch with them, make sure that if we've got 3 out of 5 that are saying yes, but might as well get in touch with the rest of them. Right. Any other questions on that for Mr. Tate? No. Right. Hold on, my laptop's gone off, so I've got to figure out what the next stage is. I think it's working party. Not working party. Sorry.
Minutes of the Healthy Staffordshire Select Committee.
That's it. Yeah. Councillor Cooper, you stood in for me, I hope, or
on county?
Yeah.
On county this morning, I had the problem that I couldn't hear a damn thing. And with us, we actually do it for a conference call. But unfortunately, I didn't get on a conference call with them. I couldn't get in at all. So I do apologise. I did have the minutes sent to me. I have got an update of what was going on, which I will give you a quick rundown in a second when I find them. And then I'll hand it round. Where are we? There was the Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust. That was discussed. I think it's also discussed earlier on with Simon in the previous meeting. But hang on a minute. Better, we see what I'm working on now. So we've got the partnership, and they're doing on their updates on. I found everything. I do apologise for this, folks. All my minutes have just fallen on the floor and they've all gone to pieces.
Don't worry, mine keep going off.
Sorry?
Mine keep going off after keep wobbling the screen.
Oh, they've got the direct. They've done the district and borough health scrutiny activity. That was interesting from what I can pick up here on the minutes. They did mention the beds for the winter months on the paperwork, but that's more. I tried to read it on my paper, and it was that small I couldn't read it. So I'm not sure what beds they've got in Bradwell for winter, which I know is going to be a question that I'd be asked by Alison. So I don't know whether we've still got Bradwell up and running for that.
I would have asked. Yeah, no, I can, and I would have asked about Bradwell, but I can chase that up via other means.
Yeah, I know it was that small. I couldn't read it, Alison.
Yeah, don't worry. I know who to ask. So I'll get that answer.
As you know, I'm behind you on the Bradwell one anyway, so I used to bring that conversation up. So apart from that, I'm sorry I couldn't get onto it. Like I say, unfortunately, we do a conference call, but I can't get that on Teams with County. Unfortunately, I wish I could.
Julie, did you go to the meeting on the 10th of August, or was that again conference?
No, that's the conference with me because I can't get on. I can't get on Teams at all.
Julie,
Teams is absolutely ridiculous.
Can I suggest that you get whoever your contact is at County, if they send you the link to your personal email, not to your council email, then you will be able to access it. It's to do with the administration at our end as to why it is you can't get on Teams when it's county related. Oh. But if you actually ask them to actually send you the link to your personal email, although your personal email will then be, you know, people will see it, but there's not anything you can do. They're not going to do anything to it. But if you actually get them sent to your personal email, then you will be able to access Teams that way.
Because I can get the picture, but I can't get any sound, or the mic won't work.
Okay, well, yeah, well, ask them if they can send you the link to your email, your personal email, and maybe even get one of them to actually call you on it to check that it works. Because I had the same problem. I can do it on my personal email, but it won't work through the Newcastle email.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
No worries.
We'll take the 10th of August as is written. If anybody's got any objections on that. No. Okay. Right. It's the work schedule then for next meeting. What would you like to discuss? Anything?
Well, hopefully we should have.
Sorry, Julie.
Hopefully we should have met up. Hopefully we should have met up on the parks. So we should have a little bit of that. We should have had a little bit of.
We'll put the parks on again.
Yeah, so we should have had an update by then. I can't think of anything offhand.
I'll tell you what, let's go round the top. Councillor Wright, anything you would like on?
No.
Is it Councillor Taylor? I'm sorry. Gillian Taylor?
No, it's not. I'm Jill Taylor. I'm from the housing team. I was here to support Councillor Maxfield with the homelessness report.
Right. Okay. The way we used to sit, I don't know who's who from the behind me, you see. So, Councillor Owen, have you got anything you want on?
Yes, Chair. Definitely parks.
Yeah.
Okay. And can we, by yourself maybe, can I express my bewilderment at why we're still having these Zoom meetings where time and time again, everyone I've been on since the beginning of April, something goes wrong or some member can't get on in time, or people are speaking and it's not very good. Not doing my health and well-being any good, Chair. So
you want to know when we get back to normal? Okay.
I can't wait.
Councillor Garner. Oh, sorry, you finished.
But I think it's important that we sort of do have a look at this. I'm on other committees, and as I say, everyone that I've been on, we have issues, and as I say, it doesn't do my health and well-being. I'm sure other members feel the same way. We're told, yeah, it's wonderful. My view is, no, it isn't.
Well, Martin's had to leave, so who's deputising for him? Mr. Tate or Mr. Beard?
We can sort of take that. I think the difficulty is effectively the meeting rooms that we have, and actually how many people we can accommodate within those and still adhere to social distancing. So it's unfortunately at the moment it's not an easy and quick fix, Chair, but it's something we will be discussing as we go forward.
Yeah, even if it's a reduced committee again.
Yeah,
Councillor Gardner, you're shaking your head. Why? By the way, we can use sign language if you prefer.
I can do lip reading, Councillor Gordon.
So, right, I spend much too much of my time online in international conferences with the government, with the university. There are platforms by which we can do remote meetings and conferencing very, very efficiently with hands up and all sorts of security, putting the links into our individual calendars, which is not hard, which is not being doing. So rather than doing something which I strongly suggest that we do not do, and set a bad example, which is to go back to in-person meetings when we were facing a second spike, is that we actually utilize the platforms that are available a lot better than we are. And they aren't as hard as people are, but I have to say that I have got frustrated with the systems here because of it's the implementation, and what we're using is not been efficient. And I think it was Councillor Maxfield says that even the county are managing it, and we're experiencing problem at our end. So I think we need to address that rather than go, we better all go back to face-to-face meetings, because that would be risky, and it's not fair it's not fair for democracy if we have reduced meetings, and it's not fair on elderly or people who have to shield, or vulnerable councillors and officers who may not be able to attend to do that thing. So I think we need to rethink about how we do this, the IT systems and the meetings platforms.
Well, Councillor, sorry, Mr. Tate and Mr. Beard, I'm sure I'll take that back. Second one I've done, and I've got to admit, I'm quite happy with it because I'm a caveman. I've never even tried this before, and it's working.
You want me to add my bit
well,
now about the working?
One.
Hold on, not two together. Yeah. Councillor Gardner, why are you talking?
To say what I would like on the working plan?
Yes.
So I think we did agree also when we did the parks that we would have some work done on domestic violence, a wider thing. Now I know Councillor Maxfield is keeping a close eye on that, but following from the meeting that we had previously with the change into the new system, and we weren't particularly happy, if you remember, with the report that we got and the lack of data and comparisons, that was on the agenda as well. And also in amongst all of that, we've had some quite high profile suicides within the borough, and I would like to sort of an update on the mental health champions and the mental health things, and see what actually is physically happening with that, you know, is in that process. So I think we need to have a little focus on that. And then finally, I'm just wondering, it's a shame Mr. Hamilton has left, as I would like us to have a little bit of focus of due care and diligence of our own staff within the council, and to have some sort of report on how we're monitoring and caring the health and well-being of all our officers and all the departments, and make sure that they're getting equity of treatment across all departments.
Okay. Councillor Moffat.
Sorry. I'd like to second Councillor Gardner's concerns re face-to-face meetings. It would be awful to see for us to do it and then for councillors to become ill. And also there is the concern for people who work for the council as well. So as much as I would love to be in the room with everybody, because I like to be able to see people's faces and expressions and all the rest of it. But let's do it in the right way at the right time.
Have you anything to put on the worksheet?
No, I mean, I would like, I mean, you know, I think that our officers are doing a really great job, but, you know, there's so many themes on the work group. You know, for me, health and well-being and mental health and well-being is really, really important. Not just our borough, but across the country, we see almost kind of epidemic levels of mental illness or mental ill health, rises in suicide and distress. So for me, that's a major concern. And the chair of North Staff's Mind, perhaps it would be great to have a presentation from North Staff's Mind about the kind of work that they're doing, obviously not just in Newcastle but across the board.
You realise you've just put yourself forward.
I'm quite happy to put myself forward for that. As you heard with the thing about my enthusiasm for parks and open spaces and the positive impact that has on mental health and well-being, but you know, there is a real concern, and I know you know, there are hidden numbers that we don't become aware of until people hit crisis point. It has an impact on crime, it has an impact on domestic violence, it has an impact on performance in young people at schools, etc. So I'd be really happy to work on that. And my other passion, and please don't take this the wrong way, is crime reduction. You know, a lot of the work that I've done, I'm sorry, I was just being a little bit, when Liverpudlians say that they're interested in crime, it can raise a few eyebrows. But a lot of the work that I've done locally has been looking at interventions and ways of reducing criminal behaviour. I'm particularly concerned in our ward, Councillor Wilkes, our proximity to the M6. And actually our entire borough is very susceptible to things like the county lines, crime and kind of drug running. So I'd really like for us to have a look at a kind of a joint working party with the police, and perhaps even look kind of at some regional advice, because you know, we get hit from Liverpool, from Birmingham, from Manchester. We have such easy access, and a lot of our young people are very vulnerable. A group of parents contacted me because they were concerned about their teenagers getting sucked into drug running and gangs. So I'm looking at some funding from Stafford Community Fund to see if we can work with some young people to look at what their vulnerabilities are as well. So wellbeing and crime, I'd be really interested in.
Okay. Councillor Maxfield. Oh no, you're not on it anymore, are you? You're just an advisor now.
Well, yes, indeed.
Well, in that case, I'm not going to ask you what you want on. We'll have you on as an advisor. Councillor Holland, have we got you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm always listening, you know that. In terms of the work programme, I think that the piece of work on parks and open spaces is likely to be the basis of a full and interesting report. I think that we will also be probably wanting to look again at the coronavirus response, and I think the three headings under which Councillor Maxfield presented her report tonight are particularly apposite and perhaps ought to be repeated. We did hear concerns about the town centre. We did hear concerns about the accommodation, particularly of rough sleepers, and the need that we have for a long-term strategy. And finally, what was the last one? The last heading we had?
Crime.
Crime. Okay. Was it? You sure?
Oh,
no,
sorry. The heading of that.
Domestic violence.
Which is crime.
So, bearing in mind that we've had a request from another committee member for a more detailed report on domestic violence, I'd be hesitant at this stage to commission a piece of work like that, because as we've repeatedly heard, including tonight, neither by the metric of service requests nor by the metric of police reports is domestic violence rising. And I think if we consider it as part of a wider report into the COVID response, that will be enough from my perspective. And if the need in the future arises to commission a more widespread piece of work, that then we can consider at a future meeting. And I think all of the other things that are suggested are incredibly worthy. So I've heard a lot of suggestions tonight that I think are worthy of our time. But for the sake of our officers present, it would be useful if in between this meeting and the next meeting, some thought is given exactly to the scope of those things. We can't just say to our officers, we want you to go away and we want you to look at this, we want you to look at that and give us a report. Well, no, we need to be very clear about what we're asking. I think Mr. Tate was very right when he said that we need to carefully decide the scope of these things that we're considering. And if I may, finally, when it comes to face-to-face meetings, I would like to support what Councillor Owen said. I'm afraid I must disagree with Councillor Gardner. I think that the sooner we can go back to meeting in a COVID-secure face-to-face way, the better that will be for the operation committee and of the council. See, even Councillor Gardner's dog agrees with me. I think that it is a travesty for us to be saying to schools and colleges, oh, you've got to go back, you've got to behave yourselves. We need to set an example. We need to show that it is safe for us to meet face-to-face in a secure way. And I have to say, the Conservative group meeting that took place earlier in the week was an exceptionally good example. I think that we have the means available to us to meet in person. If, for example, there are people who are self-isolating, as, for example, the leader of the opposition in Parliament is at the moment, it is possible for them to participate remotely. And I would like to very strongly suggest that we look at meeting by default in person when we can, when it's safe to do so, but that we should not exclude the contributions of people who, for various reasons, are unable to attend. But I think it is ludicrous for us to go into the next cycle of meetings, say, oh, well, we'll consider next year whether we should meet face-to-face. No, this has to be tackled now, and there is a solution available. Thank you, Chair.
Right, we're 2-2. Now, I'm looking at my watch. I have to go work at 11 o'clock before I let Councillor Gardner in, because I know she's going to, you and Mark are going to end up with 2-2. Before I let you in, because you're still on mute, we will be keeping an eye on the domestic violence thing whatsoever. It isn't just going to be put to one side. Right, go on, Councillor Garner.
Right. I just want to point out that we had various programs and processes in place pre-COVID, and we cannot just bin them and ignore them and use COVID as an excuse not to do anything. Just because domestic violence is not rising, we should be doing strategies to help it fall. So this needs to be considered. Same with the things that we committed to having a mental health champion and dealing with mental health. There's a specific, focus on suicide. And it wasn't in my ward, Ken. It was in your ward, wasn't it? A really high-profile suicide that was streamed live on Facebook. We cannot let these things now gather cobwebs. And we need to address those. I'm not asking now that we go and do the whole body of work to go for white ribbon status, which is what was the plan before COVID. But this idea of, well, it's not rising, so we don't need to worry about it too much is not the answer. It was high to begin with. We need, it's our duty to bring these things down, not just be grateful that they're not getting worse.
If I may, just on a point of personal explanation, Chair, I would like to confirm that Councillor Gardner has entirely misrepresented my review on domestic violence. This is a scrutiny committee of a borough council, and I'd like to remind Councillor Gardner of that fact. I'd like to remind her of the incredible efforts that are already put in by our officers, the officers of the County Council and the Staffordshire Police Force in making sure that things like domestic violence are not rising, in spite of the ghoulish insistence at every stage of councillors like Councillor Gardner that we need to be focusing on it. So I would like to pay tribute to the work that our officers are doing and to congratulate them for that work. I would not like to suggest that anything is or isn't a terrible societal problem. And I think it's scandalous for Councillor Gardner to suggest otherwise.
Well, I never did, Councillor Holland.
Right,
And I have a right to reply because he used very emotive language. He used very emotive language, and this is being broadcast, so I have a right of reply. I do object to your use of the term ghoulish. Thank you very much. This is not something that, if anybody had been present at the previous meeting when this was done, is not something that is a ghoulish interest of mine. So please retract that type of language. It is not acceptable. And I did not say that you were denying that it wasn't rising or that it wasn't a case. I was just saying, just because something is not rising does not mean that we still don't work on it, because what we should be doing is making sure it is falling. And that is quite a different viewpoint. And I accept now, I will be quiet, but I really, really think you overstepped the mark there, Councillor Holland, with your use of emotive language.
Right, hold it there. Do not reply, Mark. We're not playing tennis. Before lockdown, we did have a presentation, if you remember, by Domestic Violence, and they brought out these booklets and pamphlets, which we all ended up with some. I got mine ended up in the Chippy and in the two supermarkets, which they all picked up. Because it was somewhere different than what being left in a library. And that's one thing I did find, that it should be, if we can get his hands on some of these books, every council gets 5 and sticks them in a local area, which isn't a library, I think you'll find that they will go. But that was then, and hopefully we'll get it done again. I have a request actually from Dave Elkington, the ITC here. He's happy to discuss any issues that members have on access to meetings. Not right now, obviously, because with that. But if anybody wants to get in touch with him, feel free. Right. So we've got everything.
Can I just also add that this was not a criticism of his team. I should imagine of many of the teams, they are probably the most overworked. So it was not a criticism of them.
I'm not saying it was. Don't worry. I'd probably say things totally wrong. Councillor Moffat.
Hi, sorry, thank you, Chair. It's really difficult because I don't want to stir stuff up here, but I think it's extremely naive to think that domestic violence isn't an issue. The thing I do agree with Councillor Holland is that it is a ghoulish slur on the blooming society that is the UK. We cannot ignore it. Too many people are killed. 1 in 4 people experience domestic violence. The work I've been doing around adolescent domestic violence is just really harrowing. So let us not, for whatever reason, underestimate what an important issue this is. And you know, the reason for having a group like this, nobody anywhere is suggesting that our workers, our council isn't doing the best that it can. But we've got to look at how do we support those efforts? How do we work in partnership? How do we build relationships with places like the Elizabeth Trust, with GLOW? I've been doing work in Newcastle and beyond around those issues. And we can't, it would be shameful for us to underestimate the impact of domestic violence on our communities, on individuals, on young people growing up. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, right. We've come to the end of the agenda. Don't think anybody else has got anything else to say on it. I'll give you a quick 1, 2, 3 if anybody has. No, we're getting shaped. Right. So thank you for all attending. Thank you for all you that are listening out there. Denise, take it you took notes of what's what and what isn't.
Yes, correct, Chair.
That's good, because I didn't. I was too busy trying to use my 2 fingers to get things working. Right, so in that case, consider the meeting closed.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
But hopefully we will see everybody in the future.
Thank you.